Welcome to Gene and Mike do the New York Times crossword.
Hi, I'm Jean.
And I'm Mike. And today we are doing the crossword for Sunday, April 6th, 2025. So, on this most perfect Sunday in April, perfect because the sum of the factors of 6, other than the number itself, 1 plus 2 plus 3 equals 6, making it perfect. Did you do the crossword?
I did do the crossword, yes.
And was it a perfect crossword?
It was about as complicated for me as that explanation of the date was.
I see. Okay. Well, we can maybe take that out in the mix, or fix it in the mix, as they say.
Okay. But
if only we had a mix. But
the puzzle was a mix for me.
Really? Okay.
Yes, it had a very unique theme. Well, I shouldn't say unique theme because we have seen this kind of before.
We have?
Yes, we have had a Sunday puzzle where we sort of had rotating circles in it.
Oh.
And but boy, this one just really kind of was beyond me. Now, saying that, I was able to solve the puzzle.
Okay, so technically not beyond you.
Well, not the puzzle was not beyond me, but trying to figure out the theme was.
Right.
But thankfully, you didn't really have to figure out the theme in order to solve the puzzle. So that was a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was rather complicated, and I kind of blame my my left-handedness on this because I'm left-handed, and so lots of times I have trouble, transposing things in my mind.
Oh.
And that's what you had to be able to do in order to understand the theme of this puzzle. The name of the puzzle was Course Correction, and within it there were 6 different rotating squares. Where there were, they would take like 9 squares, and they would, the middle 3 would be open white squares, and the rest of them look kind of like a toggle, like you could spin. So, and that's exactly what you had to do in order to actually solve the clues in the puzzle. So the first one, I'm not going to do all of them, believe me, but the first one was 5 down. And 5 down was genre for the 2024 film Bob Marley, One Love. And the answer to that was biopic. Mm-hmm. And the BIO was in the 9 square toggled part of the puzzle. And what you had to do was that BIO went down, but if you toggled it clockwise, then it would be part of 18. Well, it would be kind of a connection between 18 and 19 across. And of course, as you toggle it clockwise, the BIO transposes to OIB. And 18 across was, oh, what's the point? And 19 across was alternative. Well, 19 across was easy. That was other, OTHER. But 18 across, what's the point? You get YD, WHY, the word, and then D, which really doesn't seem to answer the clue.
Right.
But if you toggle that BIO and it turns into OIB, it connects YD and other, and then it becomes why do I bother, which is the answer to the clue, oh, what's the point? Why do I bother? Mm-hmm. So that was the gist of the theme.
Right.
Now, all of the 3 letters in these little toggled areas were actually abbreviations of various college majors or courses, course of studies in college. And so like BIO is short for biology. Mm-hmm. And we had PSY for psychology. We had ART for art, of course, LIT for literature, MUS for music. And I picked up on that pretty quickly.
Oh.
So then I thought, for the ones I didn't know, I just kept trying to think of different majors within arts and sciences, because it seems like they were all in arts and sciences. But so that's actually how I finished the puzzle.
Wow.
So anyway, but if at least one way with these 3 squares that could rotate, at least one way you could get the answer by not having to rotate it. So like, for example, biopic, that was 6 squares down, and you could fill in biopic, and then that would also solve the one that you had to rotate, if you got the 2 sides of it correct. I'll just do another one. Let's do the one at the very bottom, 122 across. The toggled square is kind of in the middle of that, but the down clue where the three squares were was 102 down. Pita dip made from chickpeas and tahini, and the answer to that was hummus.
Right.
And the MUS was in the 9 square toggle area. So, so you could get those 3 letters, MUS. And if you toggled them clockwise, they turned into SUM. And that connected 122 and 123 across, 122 being recap. The answer to that was brief, which doesn't make any sense. But 123 across was nursery rhyme name that's said twice in a row, and the answer to that was Mary. Okay, so you've got brief and Mary, and if you toggle MUS to SUM between them, you get brief summary. So, and the MUS is shortened form for music,
right?
Which is, of course, a course of study at college. So, and that's why it was called course correction, because each one of those 3 squares represented the abbreviation of a course of study, and then the correction, I guess, was when it toggled and you transposed it, and then it would answer the across answers.
Right.
So anyway. Very complicated for me, anyway. And,
yes.
And like I said, I am just not good at spatially, trying to think about. Okay, well, if it moved, then you would have to transpose the letters, and I'm just not good at that. Now, if you solved it, you get this wonderful animation that actually moves it and transposes it, so you can see the right answers. The other way from the way that you actually solve it,
right?
And so that's pretty cool. But it was kind of a tough slog for me.
Yes, for me too. Although in many cases I could see it more easily with the acrosses, finding the 3 letters that would jump the gap, as it were, between the left and rightmost answer. I found it easier in several places. For example, certainly 91 down, Chinese fruit with leathery rinds, litchis,
yes.
Litchis. Did you know litchis?
No.
Okay, I didn't either.
But I knew lit for literature. That was one that I didn't.
Right.
And so, I was, trying various 3-letter course studies, and eventually I tried lit, and it worked.
Well, but 99 across was number with 18 zeros, and with the crosses you could get quin, and then across the gap with 100 across, animal in the Premier League logo was a lion, so it was going to be quintillion.
Right.
And so I was able to get that one, and then rotating it, realized it had to be lichties.
Right.
But where else does it? Well, I had a terrible time with biopic, because the 3 letters below the bio that formed the word pick, if you do the crosses wrong, as I did, 25 across was light, short-sleeved, collared garment. I had a C and an A and an M, and I had shirt, and I thought, oh, it's a camo shirt.
Oh.
I don't know if there is such a thing as a camo shirt. I figure there might be. And then
there is, but it isn't necessarily short-sleeved. It could be sleeveless or long-sleeved. It's just made of fabric with a camel print on it.
Right. Well, but then the other so anyways, I had an O, and then where the P should have been, and then where the C should have been, 36 across. The tourney sponsor since 1939 was the NCAA.
Right.
I don't know if you're familiar with the NBAA.
No.
It's the National Business Aviation Association.
Oh.
And of course, that set of initialism, although I may have actually been thinking of the NBAA.
Yes.
But anyways, so I had
NBA.
I had the word bio going up.
Oh,
And so I thought,
come on.
the top's got to be pick, because otherwise I didn't know it was, and I was like, I don't know. Anyways, I just thought it made sense to have bio, and then I had pick in the top. But then I realized, once I understood the theme, what was going on there, I realized, I didn't need bio in the bottom. I needed bio in the top. That was an epiphany, I can tell you that. And. But the rest of them were, I realized that that these three letters represented courses 1 second after you just explained that.
Oh, really?
I was just like, okay, sci, art, lit, whatever. I'm sort of disappointed that
you're the person who teaches.
Well, but Kareem, Kareem Ayas, who did this, I'm sort of disappointed he couldn't get computer science into those three letters. Yeah, the trouble with computer science is it's always abbreviated as CS.
Yes.
So
not enough letters.
You could have done applied computer science, but nobody would know that.
No, that's true.
So I think he chose well.
Mm-hmm. Yes, the ones he had were pretty obvious. Because I was like, well, there's physics and then there's I was econ, although that's usually ECON, not ECO.
Right.
And so I was thinking of all the different kind of course abbreviations, but eventually I got them all.
Yes. Well, my last word was with 121 across always, language from which we get cashmere. It was Sanskrit.
Yes.
Which, of course, I spelled Sanscrit.
Oh, uh-huh.
And so, I'm trying to find the mistake in my crossword, and I'm reading down 116 down, Kyle's little brother on South Park, which I've not seen, but I had the answer as ice.
Uh-huh.
And I thought, Ice just doesn't sound like a good name for a little brother. Hey, Ice. It sounds like sort of the thug down the street rather than the brother.
Exactly.
And then I thought, it could be a K. Mm-hmm. And that's when I got the happy music.
Very good.
So I ended up there.
Uh-huh. All right.
The happy music to go along with 113 across, toy with one's food, perhaps, happy meal.
Right.
There were fine clues throughout. I like the fact that we had one across was at bay, was a C.
Right.
That was very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had, I liked one down, what cuteness tends to evoke, Aws, AWS. Mm-hmm. And then that went along with 37 down, sounds in massage parlors, Oz.
Uh-huh.
So we had Oz and Oz.
Yep, that's true. That's true.
So I thought I don't know if that was planned or not.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Well, one other thing we should mention about the theme, there was a revealer right in the middle, 69 across, intense cycling sessions, or what you must do to complete the answers to this puzzle start clues, which were the ones that had the toggling squares in them. And the answer to that was spin classes.
Wow.
So you were spinning different classes like biology and psychology and art, and to answer the opposite direction clue.
Boy, the more you describe this, the more I find myself falling in love with the crossword.
Uh-huh.
There was really layers upon layers.
It was ingenious.
Yes.
But it was just really difficult for me to follow. So, but that's just me.
I find it interesting. So the author grew up in Syria and Lebanon, and he learned English by watching The Simpsons and from reading and rereading Goosebump novels.
Wow.
So my guess is that probably his intrinsic and deep knowledge of The Simpsons somehow will sense that when he was trying to pick. Actually, he probably looked at this and said, okay, this is going in.
Uh-huh. Yeah. It would be hard not to put this one in because it is so ingenious. But I don't believe there were any Simpson clues, as I recall.
Well, there was a reference to, this is as close as we're going to get, 50 down, Wayne's World or MacGruber, informally SNL skit.
Oh,
which is not The Simpsons.
It's not The Simpsons.
But it's another television show that gets mentioned a lot.
That is true, yes.
In fact, it would be an interesting question. Which gets mentioned more, The Simpsons or SNL? I think SNL as a name certainly shows up more.
Right.
But then when you start mentioning all the Simpsons characters...
you have to add up, like, all the times you see Bart or what's his dad's name?
Homer.
Yeah, or Apu.
Apu.
Yeah, the storekeeper. And
I think isn't there a Nat in there? Or a Ned?
Ned.
Ned,
the neighbor, I think, is Ned, yeah. Lisa is one of the girls. And so, yeah. So.
A couple of other great ones. We had 21 Down. 21 Down being cloying sentimentality was treacle, and that crossed 24 across tripe, utter rot.
Yeah.
So we had utter rot and treacle.
Treacle, yes.
And we also had a 45 across, like some mindless entertainment. We had trashy. So we had trashy and utter rot in the grid.
And treacle.
And treacle. And treacle.
Yeah.
Did you know 34 across? 34 across was blank tiles, kids' building toy. Magna?
Magna, yes.
You knew that?
I knew that.
Ooh, lucky you.
I had a Magna set when I was a little kid.
Oh, wow. I had a copy of the Magna Carta. Does that count?
No.
I saw enough letters and I thought it's going to be, I just filled in Magna and then looked across and I thought it's supposed to be Magna Carta. It's just like, oh, it's something to do with kids' toys.
Yeah, it was a great enjoyment when I was a child. I loved playing with my Magna.
I love the Magna Carta.
Well, good for you.
Yes. 1215, Runnymede.
Right.
Be there or be square. We had 60 across was quite interesting. 60 across was bit of casino equipment, rake. And here's why it's interesting. I went to do a search in Amazon to see what this rake would look like. And I did a search on poker rake. And Amazon broke at this point because it shows a picture of some sort of farm equipment, which is clearly a rake that is being dragged across a gravel road.
It's a gravel spreader, yes.
A gravel spreader. Thank you.
Yes, that's what I think it's doing there.
Okay. Well, anyways, he had this gravel, although he just seems to be driving back and forth across on the mud.
He's spreading the gravel.
Spreading gravel? Okay. Well, and then right beneath it, they had the picture of what I was actually looking for, the roulette poker chip rake for moving those chips around.
Yep.
But I just thought they've missed the point with poker rake. You know, if you were like at a casino and you said, hey, Amazon, send me a poker rake, and they sent you this, 10-foot long, 25-pound piece of agricultural equipment, or maybe landscaping, I guess would be more like it, you would be very surprised.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
Yes.
That would come up.
That Amazon I broke Amazon.
I think you did.
101 across, have you heard of the Chinese two-stringed fiddle, the erhu, E-R-H-U?
No, not at all. I had to get that all from the downs. And 82 down was it was a color, right?
Yes.
A shade of green. Nile green. I don't know what Nile green looks like. So.
Well, imagine green. There you go. So supposedly the Nile itself, I think, is it's not green.
I have no idea. I have never heard of Nile green. I mean,
really?
Lime green and Kelly green, but I've never heard of lime or
Nile green.
Nile green, yeah.
Well, that's interesting because that's what I was thinking of getting my hair dyed.
Oh, really?
I was going to go for Nile green. So according to Benjamin Moore, I believe they make paints. Nile green is a paint color. So you can order Nile green from Benjamin Moore if you want to see what it looks like.
Well, click on it, see what it looks like.
Well, I'm pretty sure it's going to be green. Yep, there it is.
Oh.
Sort of a lovely, a classic and subtly shaded.
Yeah, it's sort of a yellowish green, but But,
Green that conveys mystery and old world elegance. I thought it just conveyed green. Silly me. So,
okay, now we know.
yes.
Maybe put that in the show notes so people know.
All right.
Oh, that's Nile green.
We'll have lots of links in the show notes. I had trouble in the bottom right corner, and I think we'll sort of wrap it up here. But we had 119 down, like some humor. I had it ending in RY, and I thought, oh, it's dry humor.
Yeah.
And then the one next to it, 120 down, turned to ash. Perhaps I thought it had to be die, D-I-E.
Oh.
And so I had dry and die when I should have had rye, W-R-Y, and dye spelled D-Y-E.
Yeah.
So I guess that just sort of turned to ash, as in you dye your hair an ashen color.
Yeah, or dye anything. Ash is, a color, a gray color.
Does it look anything like Nile green?
Not even close.
Okay, I could sort of tell from the name, but...
Yeah, when I got to 119 down, I thought, well, it could be rye or dry. So I chose rye just because it was different.
You chose wisely.
And I did choose wisely because that 118 across was blue in a way. There's another color, but they were talking about blue being, rather risque, and the answer was lewd. So
L-E-W-D.
I had the W and then the D, and so that D went for dye, as dyeing something ashy color.
Yep.
Yep.
So, a fabulous crossword by Kareem Ayas.
It was amazing.
It is just amazing to me that he learned English by watching The Simpsons.
Yeah.
And he's now a high school teacher of English literature in Harlem. So,
Wow.
well done, Kareem.
Yes.
5 squares on the Jam Sierra scale.
I would say so.
All right, we are unanimous in this. All right, so that is it for today. Thanks, everyone, for listening.
Yep.
Hope you're enjoying these podcasts, and we hope you're going to join us again when we talk about Monday's crossword tomorrow.
Bye-bye.